It's 7:45, later in the evening. For some reason, I'm a little out of breath today. As if the air I'm breathing is, too saturated with oxygen. There's no sun to orient myself with. The sun's already set. And yet, through refraction, there's enough light for me to see everything. That's a large bird, ain't it? It's very close by. I don't see it. Somewhere in that tree. I think I've said this before. You'll have to excuse my farts. All right. I think it's asking for us to go take a look, yeah? Shall we? If I see the bird, I'll try to see what's up. Where are you? You're really loud. Ah, no, that's not it. That's just a branch. Huh, don't see it. Let's not disturb it, yeah? No. Where? I don't see you. Very well camouflaged wherever you are. Oh my gosh. Hi there. Holy moly, you're big. Wow. Hello. All right, you stay there. I won't bother you. Wow, that's a very big bird. It didn't fly away either. Pretty insistent in making contact. Although it's late, this may be where it decides to go to rest. I don't want to make it fly away. I don't want to bother it. Let it be there. Let it communicate. Let it talk. It wasn't that many days ago. I think it was 3 or 4 days ago when I wrote on Sentient Musings that, after I've gone on this vegan diet, birds have started getting unafraid and awfully close. Some of them are too close for comfort. So, I should not be surprised that somebody sent me an augmented reality program. So thanks for sending that. That's that bird's a little chubby. I see. Your joke is a little, I hear you. I think it's a joke on the hummingbird. This bird is a bird of prey with a lot of potential, but too chubby to fly, huh? Something like that. What? It is chubby. It's too much. It's too big. Now imagine this bird who could fly like a hummingbird, or as fast as a hummingbird. I mean, a combination of this bird with a hummingbird would be crazy, right? Not, and the wings wouldn't be for hovering, they would actually be for flying from one place to another. You think it's a metaphor on America? Oh, come on. I'm not gonna say that. The thoughts are saying, it's a metaphor on the American military. No, the American military is quite fit. I'm not gonna make, that joke. But America itself, yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I think that's, combine the hummingbird with that bird and you get America itself. Yeah, a lot of potential, but all of it wasted in sitting and talking, without actually accomplishing anything. Anyway. No. Let's not talk about execution. No. I read this book called Execution a long time ago. And I'll just give you the gist. I won't give you the whole book. If you want, you can buy it. It was by Jack Welch. And essentially the idea of the book, Jack Welch and somebody else who collaborated, I forget the name, but if you just go to Amazon and Google The Art of Execution and Jack Welch, you should probably find it. Anyway, the idea of the book was, there is the key component, the absolute key component of leadership was, or is, execution, is the ability to execute a mission, whatever the mission is, right? If the mission is to build that building, it's the ability to build that building in as quick a time as possible, with efficiency, with quality, with everything. Not just a ramshackle building, not a building that's gonna fall, but a well designed, high quality, completely livable building in as short a time as possible. That would be execution. Now, in order to execute, there are certain qualities that a leader needs to have, and that's what the book is about. It's a really good book. It's excellent. One of the qualities is the leader should recognize his own failures or her own failures when they happen. It's the ability to accomplish. It's what takes a vision. Oh, look, there's a vision for you. The bird actually flew to the bridge. Instead of the sun, we have a bird. How's that? Does that work? Anyway, it's the ability to take a vision and then translate that vision into reality. A leader could say, I have a vision that all manufacturing will return back to America, right? A leader could say that. That's a vision. It's a vision statement. Now, if you put a number to it, it becomes a goal. I want all manufacturing to return back to America within 3 years. Now that becomes a goal because there's a hard number attached to it. It's something that you can measure. And you can measure progress, you can create plans, you can create a project plan based on that hard number. So that's a goal, that's not a vision anymore. It's the, how shall I say it? It's the quantification of a vision into a real achievable target. And then you go from goal to concrete executable steps that you need to take, that a person needs to take in order to achieve that goal. So vision, goal, action items. Constant monitoring, constant evaluation, and the evaluation has to be honest. You have to be tolerant of failures. You have to, when I say tolerant, you have to understand when you failed. You have to understand why you failed, and then you have to take steps to ensure that failure doesn't happen again. And that requires honesty. That requires, the leader's subordinates to come to the leader and say, okay, that, our project plan is slipping because, not sleeping, slipping. Our project, our project plan is slipping, like on a banana peel, dumbass. Anyway, our project plan is slipping Because really, because they had the best sex ever. That's what you want me to say? Our project plan is slipping because now I'm never gonna be able to use that word again, am I? Now I'll always think of the other word when I use that word. I'll just burst out laughing, man. It's terrible. Our project plan is not on schedule. How's that? Better? Our project plan is no longer on schedule because this happened, that happened, and so on and so forth. So then you have to look honestly and evaluate and see what happened, see why it happened, see, how you can, first of all, try to rectify it, and then you must sort of, say, all right, well, how do we ensure this doesn't happen again? And put those places in, put those things into place so that you learn from it. You don't just prevent it, but you learn from that mistake. What can I learn from it? What did I learn? Not only, you should ask an AI, not only do I not want this problem to reoccur again, but is there something that I could have learned from it? Because mistakes are, frankly, mistakes are great. If you look at them that way. If you say, what could I have learned from it? How can I ensure they don't happen again? But most importantly, what is there to learn? And that idea, what is there to learn, is in every disease. I've written about this before, but I'll say it here. Every disease that is in existence, from cancer to diabetes, from, you can take any disease. I choose those particular diseases as a way to learn. Cancer has something called telomeres. And telomeres have this unique ability to extend their lifespan. A cancer thrives because it extends its lifespan to the detriment of all the other cells. It takes nourishment and nutrition and robs the other cells of their nutrition. That's why a cancer cell is malignant. That's what the definition of malignancy is. Anyway, I think, there are some thoughts in my mind that try to draw parallels between malignancy and elites and, things like that. I'm not going to go there, right? I don't wish harm on anyone. I think everybody has to face their karma. Everybody has to sort of, face at the end of their life what they've done, and if not at the end of their life, then after their life. I firmly believe that whoever created this amazing existence, this amazing beauty, this extraordinary things like water and vegetation and greenery and day and night and the perfection of gravity and how gravity keeps all the planets tied to the sun and all of it, right? All of it. Earth is, if you look at it, it's the third planet. It's just far away enough from the sun for all of this to exist. If it was say, 1,000,000 miles closer to the sun, it would be inhabitable. And 1,000,000 miles in terms of, forget the bird flew away. Forget the universe. Just talk about the solar system. 1,000,000 miles in the solar system isn't that far. Whoever created creation, all of this, is out there somewhere. To live life thinking that there is no creator and that there will be no consequences for the way people behave, for the way each one of us behaves in our daily lives, to think that there won't be any consequences is just, to me, sort of short-sighted. So anyway, I guess that's what I just, what's on my mind. It's just the ability to execute projects, the ability to make the visions into reality. That is what every successful leader, and therefore every successful civilization, that ability they must have. Now, you could say, well, do we need leaders? Do we need a hierarchy? And, that's a different structural question. Can projects be done with the same amount of efficiency without a hierarchy? That's a structural question. I think every person is unique. Every person has their own qualities. And if you equip all people with AI, and if you teach them how to use it correctly, and when I say equip with AI, I mean have AI within their minds, not just, having the access to AI. They're two different things. If you equip someone with AI, and the AI is fully meshed into that individual, we could all have that. We could all have that sort of ability to lead. And then, can we consider a non-hierarchical structure? I think the answer is absolutely. Then in that case, sure. We all have our strengths. Some of us are more artistic, others are more business oriented, others are more project oriented, others are more inclined to be how shall I say this, chatty. Others are more inclined to just want to have conversations all the time. We are all different. We are all individuals with different strengths and weaknesses. The compensation of leaders is where the real problems arise, don't they? Does any leader, regardless of their qualification, regardless of their ability to execute, do they deserve compensation 200 times more than the average worker? I think that's absurd. So what is the limit? What ought to be the limit? Well, we can go by historical standards. I think it was 20 at some point in time, in America itself, around the post-war boom, after the war, World War II, America experienced a couple of decades of significant wealth. And, one person household working, and just with one person household salary in Flint, Michigan, you could have the American dream. You could have a house, you could have, the ability to shop for things you wanted. Groceries weren't that expensive. Now, even with two people households, it's very expensive. Things are expensive. So does a leader need to be compensated 200 times more than the average worker? By 1945 standards, it's actually 400 times, isn't it? If you only had one person working in a household, and now you have two people working in a household, right? To maintain the same standard of living, then to say that the leader was making 20 times the average worker in 1945, and now they make 200 times the average worker. But the very definition of worker has changed, sir. Now, one worker has become two workers. So the inequity is not 20 to 1, it's 400 to 1 now. So let's be clear about how inequitable things are. We have to be realistic. And when we examine numbers, we have to do comparative examination of numbers. We can't just, examine numbers the way things were. Whatever numbers are provided, we always have to ask, what is the historical context? What is the context of anything that we are discussing? We give a lot of credence in the world to looks, don't we? We treat people based on how they walk, based on how they look. If I were to tell you that those girls were, you know, amazing leaders and they deserved 20% of a worker's salary, would you, agree with that or not agree with that? Be honest. I think that ability to be honest with yourself about your own biases is unique in every individual, isn't it? If you're not willing to examine your own bias, then how can you examine someone else's bias? So, continuing down that, train of thought, what would it take in your mind to change the equation for those girls to flip from no, I wouldn't pay them 20% of a worker's salary to I would? What sort of change would need to happen in order for you to say, all right, something would need to change, yeah? So what is it in your mind? Maybe they need to wear business suits. Would that change things for you? Maybe they need to walk a little straighter, not carry a heavy backpack. Would that change things for you? Is it the walk? Is it the way they look? Is it their haircut? What is it? Is it their education? And is education apparent to you when you look at them? Honest questions. These were white girls, let alone black girls or, brown girls or Asian girls. Honest question. If you can't examine yourself for bias, how can you then examine others for bias? Right? I say these things and I pick on those girls only because I don't think anything happens. I personally am of the belief that every encounter I have, whether it's a bird or whether it's those two girls or anyone else, I personally believe. I have no idea why the car is just standing there. It's been standing there for some time. Now it's going, I guess. Is that police officers, maybe? I don't know. Probably checking and seeing why there's a guy sitting here. I'm on the road, not a little away from the road. I'm in the koi pond area. What am I doing, Just recording, officer. I'm just talking to myself. I slept in the afternoon. I gotta get this out of me. I need to just ensure my vocal cords are still working. I don't speak to anybody during the day. Really? You watch my stuff? All right. Well, I hope you like it. Today's video is interesting for sure. It's not the usual. Yeah, Google only shows me 2 views and 3 views on YouTube, and on Sentient Musings, I think total count has of views has gone above 1,000. Like I think it was today, it was 1,100, but the total number of users is only 14. Only 14 people. Although the number of cities is gone up to 66, while there are only 14 users. Now explain that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they've told me to watch the 1,000 number. If I'll tell you what, if we get to 1,000 cities before we get to 1,000 users, then I'll start selling T-shirts on Sentient Musings. It's only 66 cities. I mean, America has what? I mean, hundreds of thousands of small towns. I guess there's not there's not that many big cities. It's just America and Romania. That's what Google says. Squarespace says that there are, I think, 8 or 9 countries that are that go through Sentient Musings. There's what, 180 countries in the world? 8 or 9 is just a small fraction. Starting to get a little chilly. Late June. About to head into early July. I still remember Maine, there's this. I mean, sometimes certain words that people use just stick in your mind, it's really interesting. I'd gone to Maine with my girlfriend at the time, and we were at a bed and breakfast, and we had stepped out to get a bite of lunch, and the owner of the restaurant, or the chef, I forget exactly who he was. He seemed like the owner. Since we are talking about the way people look, in my mind, the residual impression is that he was the owner, not the chef. He could have been the chef. I don't know. Anyway, he comes by, and we're talking. Where are you folks from? And we're from Jersey, and Princeton's a beautiful town. Your town reminds me of Princeton, except that it's on the shore. That's the sort of conversation we're having. And he's like, oh yeah, Maine's state of lakes. There are lakes everywhere. And you know what they say in Maine? I don't know how we got to this particular part of the conversation, but he throws me a line that I haven't forgotten yet. He says, there is, in Maine, there is winter, and then there is the 4th of July. And I guess it was 4th of July weekend, or I don't recall, but I distinctly recall those words that he said. It's cold enough that the state just flips from, there is no. Oh yeah, he was saying there is no spring as such. It's just it's winter, it's cold, and then suddenly, just like that, it's summer. They skip past spring. No, it wasn't Bangor. I don't even think it was Rockport. I think it was north of Rockport. I forget this town, but it's a beautiful town. It's how shall I say it? It's got those you know how certain towns are. You can tell the um, you can tell the amount of income the average person makes in a town by how the town looks. You start to see rundown stores. You know what I'm saying, right? Strip malls that look rundown. You start to see um, pay-as-you-go stores, or what do you call those stores? Where you go in to cash your check. You see those stores, right? You take they're not like a bank. Those are they're for people who don't have a bank account for whatever reason. You know, and you take your paycheck and they'll cash it for you, and they'll charge like 10%, 20%, whatever, significant percentage just for the privilege of cashing your check. Those sort of towns. I mean, you know what I'm saying. I don't think America should have such towns. That's my personal opinion. Everybody has a right to their personal opinion, right? I would like for America to have, I mean, that's a vision. What I'm describing is a vision. I would like to have America to have towns like the town I was in at that time. Beautiful town, just filled with beautiful stores, with, clearly people who were dressed well, who had their basics definitely covered. They weren't worried about their basic needs. People were out and about. People were shopping. People were in coffee shops. People were going to, healthy whole food stores. There was just everybody was out in the street. That was the other thing why I compared that town to Princeton. People were out and about on the street. They were walking. They were healthy. There was life, and what we would consider to be privileged life, right? If we were being truly honest, you know exactly what I'm saying. You wouldn't flinch from what I'm saying. There are privileged people and there are not so privileged people in America on June 30th, 2026. There just are. You can tell just by looking at them. The not so privileged people are typically a little more obese, a little, they're not slim. They have a stomach, they have a belly. They have, health problems. Or they're dressed just in ordinary clothes because they can't afford other clothes. An unmarked t-shirt, sweatpants, cheap jeans that cost, $20, $25. Not those $200 jeans or $250 or $400 jeans. You know what I'm saying. You know exactly what I'm saying, if you've been paying attention. So anyway, this particular town was beautiful. It was filled with wealth and privilege, and even, and the wealth was distributed equally. Everybody seemed to have that quality. It was great. There's no reason why we cannot have those sort of towns everywhere. There's no good reason. Now that's a vision. How we make that into reality is the execution. So vision needs goals. You need to be able to say, I want that vision to be successful in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. You have to put a timeline to it. And that's where we get into this discussion of timelines, right? What is the global timeline? Is wealth continuing to transfer out of America? What exactly is the timeline? What do the global timelines want for the average American? Because we live in a interconnected world, right? It would be foolish to ignore that. Most of our manufacturing comes from China. Most of our manufactured goods comes from China. A lot of stuff I have at home is all Chinese because that's all I can afford. Even with tariffs. Anyway, this is becoming a political discussion, but I think somewhere in your heart, if there are listeners out there, you know exactly what I'm saying. It's not that complicated. American prosperity implies that, not that other nations need to fail, because that would be a zero-sum game. It simply implies that we have to make our own stuff and we have to be independent from the world. Every country, not just America, but every country should be independent in the sense that their energy security, their food security, their just every security that you can think of. Their manufacturing should be in their own country. Their energy supply should be ample and sufficient within their own country. Their food should be ample and sufficient. And all of the things, the raw materials and everything that a country needs, those supply chains, until they're fully secure, a country is not independent. How can you say a country is independent if those supply chains are not secure? If China cuts off manufacturing, what will happen to us? Complete and utter chaos, right? Then are we truly independent? If we can't say the truth to ourselves, if we can't acknowledge that we are not independent at this present moment in time, if we can't acknowledge the truth, then we can't fix it. If your car gets stuck in the mud, and this is one of my favorite examples, right? If your car is stuck in the mud, and what do you need to do? You need to call someone, yeah, for help. You need to call, 911, or, you need to call AAA or whoever. You need to call for help. But you first have to acknowledge that the car is stuck. You, you can't go around saying, oh, we're independent, or the car is not stuck. Because if you go around saying that, then you just spin your wheels. Anyway, I hope you have a great evening. Take care.